I can show you the world.
A whole new world.
Don't you dare close your eyes.
We are on a Hollywood hike with Michael G. Keller.
That's me.
And it's going to be an interesting hike. We're in Chavez Ravine, which has an interesting history that we will talk about. We actually met in Toronto.
We were like festival buddies.
Yes.
We've become fast friends.
Fast friends, and we've maintained our friendship for several years.
Yeah.
And have utilized each other on different projects.
Yeah, you played a part in one of my projects.
Yeah, one of my fine acting jobs.
No, it was like, you know, how your method of acting, it reminds me of like when they try to, you know, the hackers try to guess a password. They use like a program to just try every possible password until they like reach it. So that's kind of like what you did. You read your line every single way until like one of the 100 ways you read it was like Academy caliber performance.
That's called what throwing feces on the wall and hopefully something will stick.
Something eventually stuck. It was like the brute force method.
Did you always see yourself as a filmmaker? Do you see yourself as a writer? What do you feel like if someone says, "Hey, what do you do?" What do you tell them you do?
I'm a storyteller? That's like very vague, right? You can tell us the same story in all sorts of media, you know, with budgetary constraints and whatnot, but it can resonate in different ways. Like you can, you know, you write a novel and, woo!
Yeah, we got to the main
Yeah.
road. I like it. I like it a lot.
You get a different aspect, like you see the characters' inner thoughts, their inner world. Whereas, you know, you make the same story as a film and it's visual, it's immersive in a different way. You know, not immersive into the character's mind, but immersive visually into their world, their external world.
I mean, I think filmmaking is a collaborative storytelling. I mean, you're working with different people to help tell a story, versus writing being maybe more singular.
Right.
Because you've written like novels.
Yeah, yeah. You know, filmmaking seems to suit you because you're such a social person. Like I almost get this impression like half the reason you do this is because you love people and you love being around them and working with them and like you're like, why are you doing this Hollywood hike? It's like I would never think to do this. It's because you're an interactive person. No, you're a social animal.
Yeah, no, it's because I'm lonely. and then you know, I want to have some friends and obviously, you know, this is the only way to go on a hike with somebody. I mean, I think that, you know, a lot of times I'll ask questions of people that I've known for many years and I'll
not know what they're going to say.
Well, like what we're talking about right now about creating and why we create.
Right.
I think we learn a lot about ourselves and other people.
You're fascinated by like mysterious women, right? Like yeah, you put them on a sort of like pedestal. Like what are things that keep you like what are things that engage you so much that you want to like, you know, go through this Sisyphean effort to put it on screen?
You can look at certain themes in my filmmaking and say, okay, you know, it's about, you know, maybe power, or it's about relationships, or about who holds the power.
Right.
And I think
the flux of power, like transferring back and forth between the characters and this like sort of interplay.
Or even who really holds the power. Like you can see someone who might be maybe weak, but actually they might be the person that
is pulling the strings.
That pulls the strings or controls the world or whatever.
Right.
You know, I mean, I feel like I'm comfortable in that world. Sure. I find humor in it. I find a passion in it. I think that, you know, there's certain things that fascinate me about people, and it ends up being in my films. I mean, let's move more towards you, because, you know, I only get Mike Keller like once a hike. You know?
one hike per series.
And I was thinking about.
Wait, can I like when you said I'm fascinated by people, I was just thinking to myself like, sure, I'm fascinated by people, but I'm sort of like the opposite in a sense. Like I sometimes I feel like I'm an automaton, like going through the motions of being like a human with feelings. I mean, I have feelings, I have empathy. I try to behave in like an ethical way, but like I'm just not as. You know what I'm talking about?
You don't feel like you're as empathetic?
No, I'm very empathetic. Like I
Okay.
behave in an empathetic way, but I
Well, I mean, I
I
feel
just
like
don't feel things as deeply as a lot of people do. You know what I mean to say? Does that mean I'm like
Well-
depressed or something? I just I just don't have like, you know, like I feel
Certain-
sadness,
Okay.
but it's not as deep as someone else's sadness. I feel like joy, but it's not this like elation. You know, I'm just very like even tempered, I guess. And
No. It's apparent that you're a sociopath.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
Do you feel like film has the power to change people and to motivate?
You know, you've caught me at like a cynical time, because sometimes I believe it does, and sometimes I think, you know, it takes so much to like change a person's outlook on anything, and so to some extent, like you make a socially relevant film or something, and you're sort of either preaching to the choir, or you are you know, raising awareness of something that people feel helpless to like do anything about. I don't know. I mean, that movie Okja, like that
Yeah.
may have turned a few people into like a more of a plant-based diet, right? To some extent, maybe, hopefully.
Or they watch the movie, then they have their bacon and eggs.
Yeah, I
you
don't know, man.
Michael made this really interesting film called Red Gold, and he did something very interesting. It was about the organ trading market.
Like a black market in organ trafficking, basically.
We're talking about kidneys and eyes and blood and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I read this really fascinating book called The Red Market by Scott Carney. And it's like basically about the commodification of the human body. Like there's like a chapter on selling blood. There's a chapter on kidney.
See, almost died. Go ahead.
There's a
I
chapter
might need
on
a new
like
kidney after all this.
yeah.
Go
Who
ahead.
knows? I will. I'll try to find you one in India. The book inspired me, and then I wrote a script, and then I bought a plane ticket to India, and you know, recruited a bunch of collaborators with like no budget and like this crappy little camera from Walmart, and we made this crime drama, which I, you know, intended to be like entertaining but also socially relevant at the same time.
And you were able to exploit low pay talent to create this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like yeah, I guess.
Is
It was a labor of love. Like nobody really got. Like I never made any money off of it. You can see it on Amazon. I'll make 10 cents if you do.
Did you always have this plan? Like, okay, I'm gonna, save up a little bit of money, go to India, and make a film with a bunch of strangers.
I mean, I guess I was feeling kind of stuck in my life, and I wanted an adventure, and I wanted to go out of my comfort zone, and I was inspired by this concept, and I thought to myself, like, you know, to a great extent, our life, especially in Los Angeles, a lot of things are sort of out of sight and out of mind, and we don't really think about, you know, what, like where everything we use and interact with comes from. Like, for example, this like camera you're recording this on, it like contains rare earth minerals from probably like the Democratic Republic of Congo, and there are people who mine them who are like probably close to like in slavery. It was probably like it was assembled in like Shenzhen, China, by people who are like, you know, exploited in some respect. And so, you know, you eat a hamburger, you don't think about where it comes from. So to some extent, I just wanted to like sort of expose where, in the kidney, you know, in the sense of the kidney, like we don't all buy kidneys, but the point is like downstream, what is, like, where do the things we use come from, and what is like the real cost, not just the amount you pay for something, but like the externalities that are created by, you know, everything we use. In general, like whenever we buy something, we're not really paying the true cost, because there's always this like externality, like someone else is paying part of it in their, like the fact that their habitat is damaged or something. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like how they're like just totally mowing down the Amazon right now.
Right.
And for
you
know, and
hamburgers. I don't know what else.
Hamburgers and
something-
lumber
yeah.
and all sorts of stuff, and things are the things that it cannot be recreated or being destroyed. When you decided to pursue filmmaking, were your parents supportive?
Yes, they're very supportive.
Okay.
I've the nicest, most supportive.
They were nice. I've met your parents.
Yeah, they're very sweet. They like you.
Okay. Oh, they don't know about me.
Yeah, no, if they knew you better, they might not like you as much. But it's funny, my mother today, she said, I was talking to her on the phone, and she said something to the effect of like, Mike, don't you want to make films that everybody can enjoy? And I was like, yes, I would like to make films that everybody could enjoy. What are we talking about? Yeah.
We're talking about your mom wanting to make films that people like.
Yes, she's like really intent on me making a rom-com.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think she realizes like I don't have like this world, this like romantic worldview. Like I don't I just can't imagine the main plot point of my film being like, will they get together or not? I don't know, whatever.
Are there any films in your life that inspired you, that you felt like were socially relevant? I mean, my example would be like a film like The Killing Fields.
Oh, that's a gut punch of a film. Is Apocalypse Now a socially relevant film? That inspired me. I mean, there's a lot of artifice in it, and it's like obviously like an adaptation of a book, but this idea of like
War is hell.
Yeah, war is hell.
Yeah.
And we're making a big mess of things. Yeah, yeah. It's sort of, you could say it's a socially relevant film, and it's also just like a beautifully cinematic, visionary film.
A movie like Barry Lyndon, where it's very lush and beautiful, but that also presented how senseless war is, how just people are just numbers.
No one wins a war. I mean, ultimately, it's just who loses less.
It's just like that movie. What was that movie? Michael Bay, Transformers. Whoever wins, we lose. We're in Elysian Park, and this is part of Chavez Ravine.
Oh, was that a segue? Was I supposed to say something? Well, there were 3 villages. Okay, so Jason gave me like a homework assignment, and now I'm going to give you a book report on what happened.
We're gonna find out about a book report. No, okay. We're gonna take the curtain off of this one. I just felt like there's this very interesting story about the history of Los Angeles.
Many interesting stories.
Many interesting elements.
This is one of them.
And, yeah, well, obviously, but I think that this is very pertinent to a lot of today's issues, and it kind of involves the history of an emerging Los Angeles, and I felt like, and I shared the story with Mike, and I felt like it was something that we could talk about at this hike, because it had to do with where we're standing right now.
Chavez Ravine was a community of 3 little towns or villages, mainly Mexican Americans, and they had sort of an enclave away from the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles, where they kind of subsisted on the land. They did some small-scale farming, they kept chickens, and for the most part they were unbothered by others. But as Los Angeles grew, someone from the Housing and Urban Development department thought, like, this is a great opportunity. We can use this land that they considered blighted, like a slum or something, and they would build a huge public housing project. And so they offered all the residents what they thought was like a sweet deal, where they said, we'll pay you for your houses and we'll give you first dibs on the new community, and you can be the first people to move in. And, for the most part, wisely enough, a lot of people didn't trust them, but they realized, if they didn't sell, they wouldn't get much of anything. And they did all these shady tactics where they gave the first people the highest price for their houses, and then lowered it so that it created like a panic, like people had to sell. The fire department, for example, would practice setting houses on fire for, training. And they basically made it like hard to live.
Well, also, I would think that if you're setting houses on fire in people's neighborhoods, you're terrorizing neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And so what happened was, something was built, public housing was not built. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so through 10 years, from 49 to 59, after the Battle of Chavez Ravine, Mexican Americans were pushed from their homes so they could build Dodger Stadium. There you go. Anyway, we'll keep walking. Okay, yeah, so that's, I mean, that's eminent domain at work. I guess there's been situations where, you know, eminent domain was used for the greater good.
Sure, it wouldn't have been bad if they had actually kept their promise and left the people they took the land from better off than when they started. That would be great. Just wasn't the case this time.
Yeah, there was also an element of probably racism, and also an element of McCarthyism as well. I mean, they were talking about how the reason why they decided not to build the public housing was the mayor of the time, Nathan Paulison, said that it was un-American, building people's homes.
Public housing projects
they said it was socialism.
Right.
And there was such an anti-communist fever at the time in those late 40s that they really were more open to, you know, bringing industry here, bringing something else. I mean, in some ways, I don't know, maybe, you know, having a stadium is good for the public good. You know, people enjoy watching baseball. It's not necessarily good for the people that are kicked out of their homes and who sold their houses pennies on the dollar. You know, also, the last bit of people kind of held on.
They were dragged out kicking and screaming.
That's right. The police department, the sheriffs came, and people were physically removed from their homes, and their homes were bulldozed on the spot. I guess it's not a really happy story. I mean, I guess if you really like baseball, it's a happy story.
I don't know what to tell you. Human history is filled with unhappy stories.
Yeah, well, wait till we go to the reservations. That's going to be our next hike.
Yeah. What's over here?
Okay, I don't know. Maybe probably a
like
view of the
peak.
freeway. We're going to the peak.
This is where we peak. It's all downhill from here. No, this looks like a promising view.
Oh, it is.
Golden dappled light.
Oh! Okay, should I turn it around? I'll turn it around.
Totally.
So we can
Turn
take
it
a look.
around.
Okay.
Behold the grandeur.
So yeah, so here we go. We've made it to the Angel's Peak. This is Angel's Peak right now in Chavez Ravine.
I can show you the world.
A whole new world.
Don't you dare close your eyes.
All right, is it from Aladdin?
I believe so. Which is coming to the Pantages.
Okay. There we go. We've done it. We did our Hollywood hike. Let's put LA in the background on the sunset. I'd like to thank you, Mike Keller, for being a part of the madness.
It's been a joy.
But anyway, tell us how we can see Red Gold.
It's on Amazon Prime. Actually, if you go to michaelgkeller.com, you can see clips of different projects and samples of other things. And
what type of samples? Like
not DNA samples, you know, media samples, clips, texts.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on this hike.
Yeah, thanks for being part of this. This was an interesting hike.